Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. This is Bara Aldasouqi here with Purify Your Gaze for episode number 3 of our show, Kickstart Your Recovery, where I am compiling the very best, most fundamental and foundational tips and advice that we have at Purify Your Gaze to help you make strides towards breaking free from unwanted sexual behaviors. Episode number 1, we started out talking about embarking on the journey of recovery, all about mindset, adopting the right mindset to help you make sure that you're continually making progress and not staying stuck. Episode number 2, we talked about always starting with love. Lots of people struggle with that. They struggle to really have compassion with themselves and really honor themselves. We talked about starting with love so that you can extinguish the fire of addiction, inshallah ta'ala. Episode number 3, we're talking about all about authenticity. You would be amazed to learn how many people who join us in our program at Purify Your Gaze, and they're the people who are the role models in their communities, right? They're the people who, people say, when my kids grow up, I want them to be like you, right? They're the teachers in the Islamic school or the presidents of the MSA and so on and so forth, right? And yet they find themselves struggling with this sin in secret, and so this creates that duplicity in their life. So how does someone deal with that? What does somebody do when they're facing this duplicity and they feel like a hypocrite, right? Today, we're going to talk about how to start shedding light on that dark secret, right? So that you start to live from a place of authenticity. And we're going to talk about exactly what that means. I looked at the poster that we had for this episode, and I feel like, that poster might make some people feel a little bit, afraid of this topic, as if, we're going to say that, okay, now everybody has to know about the thing that you're struggling with. And I know the poster was kind of a little bit, had a little bit of a darker theme to it with the mask and things like that. So there is a dark side to this conversation, because people have that side of them that they struggle with in secret. But ultimately, this is not about, shaming yourself in public or anything like that. We're going to talk all about what it means to live authentically. We're going to talk what it means to remove your mask. We're going to talk about why this is so important and foundational in this episode number 3, inshallah ta'ala. So welcoming everybody, and don't forget, you can always catch the notes at purifyyourgaze.com/kickstart. All right, so to start us off for today, I'd like for you to start thinking about a question, and this question is going to provide the framework, something that we'll keep coming back to during this episode. And that question is, who is blank? And fill in that blank with your name. Who is Muhammad? Who is Aish? Who is Omar? Who are you? Just kind of start thinking about how you would answer that. If I were to ask you, who is so-and-so? You're thinking about yourself. Now, very naturally, a lot of people would start thinking in terms of the roles that they play and the things that other people see them as and see them involved in. I am I'm a student, or I am a professional engineer. I'm a devout Muslim, right? I'm a leader in my community. These very apparent things, these roles that we play. But for somebody who's struggling with a secret sin, answering the question isn't that straightforward and easy, because that person might say, well, yeah, I'm a devout Muslim, but ... right? There's this thing that is inconsistent with that identity, right? Or people see me as a role model in the community, but ... right? There's this thing that is inconsistent with that identity. Now, this inconsistency tends to cause deep pain, because that individual cannot honestly, answer the question, who am I? Right? Have you ever felt pain because of this? Have you ever felt kind of like a hypocrite or maybe like a fake? Because people see you in one light, but you think to yourself, if only they knew what I did. And a lot of people who have this feeling of hypocrisy, and it causes a lot of pain, the way that they respond to it is that they try to eliminate the secret mask. Right? There's this secret part of their lives, and they assume that if I eliminate this part of my life, then finally my identity will be whole again. Because there's this other persona, this public persona, this way that people see me, now there won't be anything that is inconsistent with that other persona or identity. Right? So that's a common assumption. But have you ever stopped to think, does the answer really lie in really spending so much of my energy trying to force myself to live up to this public persona? We'll explore this inshallah ta'ala a little bit. But have you ever thought, is there something else, something deeper that needs to be considered? Have you ever thought what would happen if rather than living up to this set of expectations that I assume this is who I'm supposed to be, this is how people see me, this is who I should be, so I try to live up to it. But have you ever thought rather than living up to a set of expectations, what would happen if you decided to just remove the mask altogether? Right? What if it wasn't all about the expectations and the roles and how others see you? And what if it was all about taking time to actually find out, perhaps for the very first time in your life, who am I after all, right? Allowing your true self to actually surface and come out and manifest. Who am I beyond all of the roles and the expectations and the masks? Who is the face behind the mask? The reason we're talking about this today is that most people try very hard to live up to a set of expectations. I have plenty of examples to share with you of people who have done so. Expectations that others have upon them, or expectations that they've set upon their own selves. Hoping that if they reach this set of expectations, and that will relieve the pain of the hypocrisy that they experience so often. But what they fail to realize is that it is only by removing the mask to discover your true self that you will finally break free. Let me give you an example of what this is all about, so we're clear on what we're really talking about here. Inshallah. Tell me, let me know if this experience sounds familiar to you. One of our members shared this story in a blog article. He says, I wake up early in the morning and I get ready to go off to Fajr prayer because going to Fajr is important to me. Although I don't share it with anyone, I'm furious. As I drive to meet my Lord, I give the empty passenger chair a backhanded blow with my right arm. My face is contorted in confusion, pain, frustration. I acted out sexually the night before, and I hated the fact with every ounce of soul that I had. For years, my existence was characterized by an external display of calmness and competence, yet chaos reigned inside. Despite my acting out, I still tried to make Fajr prayer. I attended weekend Islamic seminars regularly. I held leadership roles within my school and masjid. I was successful academically. Parents in the community praised me as a role model for their kids. Everything was fine, if only this tiny little thing would just disappear. Truth is, nothing was fine. I was deeply, deeply insecure. The primary reason is simple. My focus, my goal, the thing that drove my actions day and night was living up to an unreasonable set of expectations. So can you relate to that experience of having this persona, this identity that you believe that I'm supposed to live up to that. And so you spend so much time and energy operating from this place of I'm supposed to, right? Now you might wonder, listening to this, well, to this story, isn't this level of religiosity a good thing? This member is engaging in all of these religious activities, and isn't that a good thing? And you might wonder, well, are we saying that being more authentic, right? That's what we're talking about today, being more authentic. Are we saying that that means somehow becoming less religious, right? And those are excellent questions, and I'm going to answer those, inshallah ta'ala, in just a little bit. So do stay tuned with me for that. And another welcome to anybody who's joining us for this episode number 3, inshallah ta'ala. And a reminder that you can always catch the replay of any episodes, and you can catch the notes at purifyyourgaze.com/kickstart. What are the problems with operating from this place of kind of wearing this mask? What are the problems that you'll face? Why is it, dangerous to continue, to do so and not to make an active, make it a priority to live from a place of authenticity? One of the biggest problems behind wearing a mask is that it makes it very difficult to get help when you need it. It makes it very difficult to get help when you need it. And one member shared his experience and how he kind of saw this happening for his own self. And he says, when we're placed at the forefront of our communities and relied on for help, we tend to get used to that position. We feel validation and a sense of purpose, being the one assisting others in their journey to Islam, and we won't accept a scenario where those roles are reversed. Subconsciously, we search for more opportunities to volunteer in activities and organizations because of the praise that we get from those around us. All the while, our activist persona is becoming more and more embellished, widening the gap between our public and our private lives. Eventually, we're placed on such a high pedestal that to step down from it and admit that we are actually human and have flaws would be social suicide, and a surefire way to cut off the praise that feeds our egos. When I realized the pedestal I was placed on in my community, what followed immediately was a dizzying recognition of just how far I had to fall. So that's one of the issues, right? That's one of the issues from operating from this place of trying to live up to this identity or this persona, right? And this member beautifully shares how that made it impossible for him, very difficult for him to get the help that he needed, right? To acknowledge that, hey, I'm a human being with imperfections and I need help, right? There is another thing about wearing a mask that we need to consider as well. If you haven't thought about how to practice authenticity in your own life, if this isn't something that you really contemplated and thought about, and you find, well, yeah, I can kind of relate to these experiences, and you find yourself kind of living from that place of focusing so much on the expectations and the roles and the identities and the masks, then you might not realize, if that's all you know in your life, you might not realize how exhausting and how much of a burden all of that really is. And that's the other thing that we need to consider about this. The thing about being authentic, the thing about removing the mask, is that you let go of this huge burden. Because when you're switching, between mask to mask, and when you spend so much time analyzing and thinking, about your behaviors and your thoughts and your emotions, and how do they match up to my identities? How do they match up to who I'm supposed to be? Then it's such a liberating experience, because that burden that you've been carrying for so long, you've now lifted it, right? Right? You stop spending so much time thinking about what others think and what you're supposed to do, and you stop spending so much energy trying to analyze, right, these things. And you stop doing all of that because you've allowed your true self to manifest. And when you do so by practicing authenticity, you gain back your time, you gain back your energy, and it's such a liberating experience. Wouldn't you like to experience this liberation, this freedom, and reclaim all that energy that has been spent, switching between the different masks? Stay tuned, inshallah, because I'm going to share some stories and some member experiences that illustrate how beautiful and how uplifting this experience really can be, inshallah. And we're going to talk more about how to actually do this, how to actually practice this, how to make this a priority in your life. So far, we've seen how living your life to maintain an image, it's exhausting, yet people do it because they assume that the mask they wear is who they're supposed to be. And so they work hard to make that their reality without realizing that they've failed to take the time to actually get to know their true self, their true reality. Who am I after all? So you might think, well, if the true me is not all about these idealistic expectations and this religiosity and this, having it all together, this competence, I know what I'm doing and I'm the role model. If it's not that, then who is the true you? Right? Who is it after all? Right? Some people might fear, that the answer to that question is it's the person who comes out in secret. Right? It's the person who turns to those destructive behaviors and those secret sins and desires. Right? Some people might fear that that's the true them, and that's why they might end up creating this conflict between the two different personas and fueling that conflict because they're afraid of the possibility that the true them is the one that comes out in private. So they have these dual identities that are there. But I'm here to say that that's not the case either, right? If the public persona is not necessarily the true you, I'm not saying that the one that comes out in private is the true you either. So let's explore this question. Well, who is the true you? Who is the true you? And the reality, the fact of the matter, is that I can't answer that question. I'm sitting here in front of an iPhone, sharing this video with this computer screen, right? You might be across the world sitting behind your computer screen, just watching me wave my hands and, share this message, right? I can't tell you who the real you is, but I can say a few things for certain. A few things are certain. I can tell you that you are complex. You are human. Right? You have flaws. You have imperfections. You also have strengths. There's also beauty that is within you, nobility that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed within you. Right? Can't you see that you're complex? You're complex. And can't you see that trying to define yourself as a simple mask or as a simple persona, or defining yourself by roles and identities will never capture the true depth of who you really are? Can't you see that? And wouldn't you want to get to know that person deep down? Who is that mysterious person inside of you? Right? The complexities, the depths. Wouldn't you want to get to know that person a little bit better? Right? Let's talk a little bit about how you can get to know the true you, inshallah ta'ala. In the recovery community, we recognize that addiction thrives in isolation. Addiction thrives in isolation. Lots of people, they have not shared their secret struggle with anyone. Lots of people, for years upon years, they've carried this secret burden with them. And I talk with people, and people email me, and they tell me, and people even in the forums, in our community, they say, this is the first time that I ever share this with anybody, and I've been struggling for 10 years. I've been struggling for 12 years. And this is the first time that I share this with somebody. And some people, when I'm speaking with them, even though, I'm not part of their, social circle, I don't really know where they are. They live 1,000 miles from where I live. But even so, they even have a hard time talking about it with me, because it's a secret that not only they've kept from others, but it's a secret part of their lives that even they hide it, they put it in a box, they put it underneath the bed, and they don't even want to look at it. Right? So it's a secret in a way, even from their own selves. Now, the reason that this type of isolation fuels the addiction is that your true self never gets a chance to shine. Why? Because you're so busy hiding behind different masks. Your true self never gets a chance to shine because you're so busy hiding behind different masks. Again, people do this because they think that it'll make the pain of the hypocrisy go away. But the truth is that the more you keep your true self hidden behind a mask, the more you continue to injure yourself and harm yourself. And in the long term, the pain is not going to go away. The pain is going to only continue to increase. So how do you give your true self the space to be discovered? How do you practice being authentic? The answer is to take that bubble of isolation, this brick wall that you built around yourself, brick by brick, so that no one can discover the true you. The answer is to take that and to start to break it down, brick by brick. Right? And the way that you do that is that you remove the mask in front of another human being whom you trust, another human being who values you, who honors you. But again, because you've lived much of your life never really revealing your true self to someone else, even this other human being, who is close to you, whom you trust, maybe you haven't gotten the chance to reveal your true self to them. So this other human being, you remove the mask in front of them, and you allow them to see the face behind the mask. You allow them to see the wounds. You allow them to see the flaws, the imperfections. You tell them, this is what I worry about. This is what I'm afraid of. This is what I aspire to. This is what I dream of. This is what I struggle with. This is who I am. This is my reality. Remove the mask. No sugarcoating. No hiding. Imagine that. Imagine that. Your true self has just manifested and shown itself to the world. Wow. Well, that's a tall order. A lot of people, they never consider, this is a big no-no. No way. They never even contemplated or thought that I might share this, this secret struggle, secret burden. They've never even contemplated or thought that I might show my true self, my true colors to another human being, because all they know is living behind a mask, right? But I'll tell you, and again, this might seem like, wow, how can I do this? And this is such a tall order to show someone my true self, everything, without hiding anything. How could I do that? And I'll tell you that we're not talking about rounding up your entire family and sitting them down for a family meeting, after dinner someday, and all right, everybody, we have something to talk about, and, in telling, just spilling the beans and sharing everything. That's not what we're talking about here. And in just a little bit, I'm going to talk a little bit about some ideas, some tips about how to actually practice this authenticity. It's not about that. It's not about spilling your beans to everybody in the world that you see. That's not the idea. The idea is providing a space for your true self to show itself, to be yourself with another human being. Before we go to some more ideas on how to do that, let me share with you a story that illustrates how transformative and liberating this experience is. And when you hear this story, I think you'll realize why it's so important to remove the mask and practice authenticity. We had a panel within Purify Your Gaze where 3 of our members, they shared their experiences when they removed their mask in front of somebody that they trust and they confided in them about what it was that they were struggling with. And it so happened that every single one of these 3 panel members was that, good kid. It was the person who, the kid that was doing the best academically among, his or her siblings. It was the person who was teaching in the Islam Explored, the president of the MSA. One of them says, my mom would come to me and tell me, so-and-so says, she wants her kids to be like you when they grow up. This is who these people were, right? This is who these people were. And one of them shares what he experienced when he started letting those close people around him see the real him. He says, it's the most liberating feeling. I can't explain it to you. I used to be a very self-conscious person. I used to look to people to give me confidence. Whatever people thought of me is what I thought of myself. Now that I'm transparent with people and people know the real me, I'm comfortable being that real me. So now I don't care if people don't think that I'm the most righteous person to walk on the face of the earth, because after all, that's not the case anyway. It meant I could look in the mirror every day and be proud of myself. I never ever felt that. No matter what accomplishment I did, no matter what event I spoke at, no matter what halaqah I gave, no matter what I did, I never felt proud of myself like that. Wouldn't you love to be able to feel so comfortable in your own skin that the idea of living up to an image or a set of expectations no longer even crosses your mind? You're living from within your true, authentic self. Wouldn't you love to experience that? These 3 panels, they also shared the reflection that when they removed their mask, it showed them that everyone is going through something, right? And this happened when one of the members shares her struggle with a close friend, and then that close friend opens up and says, hey, you know what? There's this struggle that I have as well. It's completely unexpected. Or this family member of mine, is actually struggling with this, right? So it's completely unexpected. They, before opening up to people, a lot of people have this, this trepidation, this fear, right? They assume that they're going to be rejected. They assume that they're going to be rejected, right? You might assume that people are not going to accept you the way that you are, but these assumptions begin to be shattered when you start to remove the mask. They also talk about how when you break isolation, you begin to realize that your struggle does not define you as a human being. Just imagine, right, that you're able to tell someone else, I'm imperfect, I'm struggling. I'm not that competent, know-it-all, role model person that people think that I am. I'm actually struggling, right? And when that other individual is able to validate you and say, hey, you know what? We'll get through it, inshallah ta'ala. And we'll get through it, inshallah. You don't have to be, right, that know-it-all person after all. After all, you're a slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This struggle that you're going through, it doesn't define you as a human being. There's so much more to you, right? There are all of your strength and the beautiful things about you, right? And all of that happens, all of that becomes possible, right? When you involve another human being, you allow them to see the true you. You may have noticed in many of these examples, I'm talking about people who are trying to have a high level of religiosity, right? Doing all kinds of religious activities. And I think this is quite common. And so this is kind of the public image that they spend so much energy trying to maintain, this kind of this person who's the role model, the role model Muslim, right? Attending classes and active in the community and all of these types of things. And so the question might be, well, isn't this level of religiosity, isn't that a good thing? And so what I'll say is that it's not about the specific actions that they are doing, right? It's not about, the problem did not lie in making sure to, go to the masjid for prayer. Of course not. Right? The problem did not lie in being, a volunteer in their community. Of course not. The problem doesn't lie in, working hard to be successful academically. By no means, right? But the problem is that, what is it that motivated them? What is it that motivated them? What motivated them is an image of who they're supposed to be. It's this idea, I'm supposed to be this, right? And so even though they may not have realized it, at the end of the day, they were spending their time and energy trying to maintain a mask, trying to maintain an image, a persona. They're working hard day and night to make that mask their reality, right? They didn't know what their own identity was. They were struggling to hold on to this religious identity because of that, to compensate for the fact that they didn't know their true selves, right? And the answer all along lied in removing the mask, but they didn't realize it. You might ask another question, which is, so if we're saying that we need to work on being more authentic, does being more authentic mean somehow becoming less religious? Right? Focusing less on these things, these noble pursuits, these important things. Is that what we're saying? Again, it has less to do with what you're doing, the specific things that you're doing, and more to do about what's motivating you. What's motivating you? What's driving you? In just a moment, we're going to talk more about ideas of how, what it means to live authentically, and some ideas that you can think about in order to bring that to your life. But for now, just know that as you start to practice more authenticity, you might change what you're focusing on. Right? You might change the things that you focus on and prioritize. And the reason for that is that when you better know your true self, perhaps you start to learn things about yourself that you never knew. You're better connected to your true self, then you have a better understanding of what's important to you. And so the idea of this is who I'm supposed to be and this is what I should do will become less and less relevant. That'll start to disappear, and you'll start to think, what do I want to do? What do I want to do? Right? And so in one of these members' case, just to give you an example, after he started focusing on and prioritizing bringing more authenticity into his life, it's true, he did end up stepping down from his leadership position in his community because that was a big source of stress for him, and he didn't feel very connected to that, right? So there is something that he stepped down from, something that for many people would be a noble pursuit. He had to step down from it in order to practice authenticity. However, on the flip side, he did start to memorize the Quran. It's something he attempted to do in the past, right? But back then it was just it was all about just living up to these set of expectations. Now he was memorizing the Quran. It's a whole new journey for him, and he was doing it now because it's something that he wanted to do. It's something he wanted, not something that he felt he should do. Right? So there's a huge difference. Let's talk more about how you can start to practice authenticity in your own life. Again, the idea is not that you need to go and confess to everybody that you know about all of the sins that you do, but also, I don't want to downplay the fact that the reality that if you haven't yet connected to your true self on a deep level, and to be honest with you, I don't know a better way to do so than to bring somebody you trust and to show them your true self. To show them your true self. That interaction can be transformative. Because it's not just about showing your true self to somebody else. It's about having another individual who can appreciate you for who you truly are. And when another individual whom you trust appreciates you for whom you truly are, you'll be able to appreciate yourself for who you truly are. Can you think of someone in your life you trust, be it a friend, a mentor, family member, imam? Can you think of someone whom you could remove the mask? Just completely remove the mask. Bring everything to the table. Say, hey, I want to talk. I want to talk. I feel like I don't have someone in my life who I can just be my true self with and bring all of my fears and all of my flaws and all of my imperfections and all of my dreams and aspirations and just put them all on the table. I feel like I don't have that in my life. A lot of people don't have that. And I want you to be that person. Will you listen? Will you hear me out? Will you allow me to remove my mask in front of you? Can you think of a person who you can do that with? So you can experience the liberation that comes with that. Now, aside from confiding in someone you trust, what's it really mean to live authentically? Let's turn to Brené Brown. She is a researcher on shame, and she has a great book that's all about living authentically. The book is called Gifts of Imperfection, Letting Go of Who You Think You're Supposed to Be and Embracing Who You Are. I encourage you, if you want to learn more about this, check out that book by Brené Brown. But what she lets us know about authenticity, the first thing she says is that authenticity is not something that you have. Right? So there's not this idea that some people are authentic, some people are unauthentic, and some people are pretending all the time, and some people are being their true self, and that's just the way it is. Right? That's not actually the way that it is. And she lets us know that authenticity is a practice. It's a practice. It's a choice that you can make every single day. Right? It's a choice you can make every single day. And how does she define authenticity? She says, authenticity is a daily practice of letting go of who we think we're supposed to be and embracing who we are. Now, most people, they appreciate an authentic person. They appreciate somebody who they feel, is very honest and down to earth and, just kind of expressing their thoughts and their emotions and, able to really just say what's on their mind and on their heart, right? In a way that's, gentle. People appreciate that. People are attracted to that. So we know that this is something we aspire towards, but we also realize, man, if that's the definition of authenticity, if it's something I have to choose every single day, wow, that's exhausting. That's exhausting. After all, I spent so much of my life hiding behind a mask, right? Trying to show an image to other people. You're telling me now I have to choose on a daily basis to be authentic. It can seem like a daunting task. And the fact of the matter is, in many ways it is. The poet E.E. Cummings, he said, "To be nobody but yourself in a world which is doing its best, night and day, to make you everybody but yourself, means to fight the hardest battle which any human being has ever fought, and never stop fighting." Wow. Right? This is a practice. This is something that needs to be chosen on a daily basis. This is something that you need to bring to the forefront of your thought and start thinking about it and start prioritizing it. Right? And so it might be tempting because, well, it's so much easier just to pretend. It's so much easier just to, live based on an image and show other people, an image and live up to these expectations, right? It might be tempting to just do that. But Brené Brown, she reminds us that can be very dangerous, because if you trade in your authenticity for safety, you may experience the following: anxiety, depression, eating disorders, addiction, rage, blame, resentment, and inexplicable grief. Right? Inexplicable grief. So the freedom that we yearn for, lies not, in focusing so much, living up to an image. Right? And it lies in practicing authenticity. And the way to do that is to focus on it. The way to do that is say, hey, I listened to this talk today and it's all about the importance of being more authentic and removing your mask in front of somebody that you trust. Hey, let me make this a priority in my life. Let me see what difference it makes. Let me wake up the next morning and think to myself, how can I bring more authenticity to my life today? And again, I'm not saying that everybody that you need to speak with, you need to share your entire life story with, but I am saying that you have feelings and emotions and thoughts, right, that are there within you, part of your complex dynamic as a human being. Being authentic means honoring those. Right? Whenever you find the opportunity to do so, sharing some of that with somebody. Sharing some of that with somebody. And no longer thinking to yourself that your true self should never come out and show itself to the world. Right? Focusing on looking for those opportunities. Right? To be your true self in front of another human being. The burden of carrying a secret for years upon years, which many people have done, is a huge, huge burden. But the thing is, you might not even realize it's a burden. So I hope that this episode showed you that there's a different way. There's an alternative path, right? And the thing about carrying a burden is that people carry this burden, but yet they have these hopes and these dreams and aspirations. They work so hard, try to achieve the life that they want to achieve, yet they do it carrying this burden. And they hope that one day that secret will just disappear from their lives and everything will be okay again. But they forget that it wasn't about, right? It wasn't about making their reality, causing their reality to match this mask or this idea or these ideals or these expectations or these what I'm supposed to and what I should do. It wasn't about that all the time. It was about removing the mask and discovering your true self after all. Without that burden of carrying a secret, then you'll be in a great place to actually pursue your dreams. The greatest fear, most likely, that people have of being authentic is the fear of being rejected and unloved by others. Right? I am afraid that if I share my true self, what I struggle with, my true thoughts and emotions with other people, then they won't like me as much as the image. They won't like me as much as the me that pretends. They won't like me as much as the me that spends energy wearing this mask. Right? And so why would I remove my mask if what they see they're not going to like? If what they see they're not going to like, and they like this other me and this other me they love, and I find validation and appreciation and praise, and people applaud me and people clap for me when I wear this mask, why should I remove the mask? And to answer that question, what I'll say is that your true self deserves better than that. Your true self deserves better than that. Your true self deserves to be honored. Right? Yes, you might remove the mask and it's not as pretty. The truth might not be as pretty as what the mask shows. There might be some scars. Right? But that's your true self. And it deserves to show itself to the world. It deserves to be appreciated and honored. You could wear the mask your entire life. You could wear the mask your entire life and receive applaud and praise from people. But you will never be loved. Only the mask. Only the mask will be loved. You will never be loved. Right? You deserve, your true self deserves to be shown. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created you with nobility and honor. And your true self deserves to be shown to the world. And the joy and the freedom that you experience when you start to practice authenticity will far outweigh the risk, the fear of being rejected and being unloved. Thank you so much for being with me for episode number 3 of Kickstart Your Recovery. I hope that you gain some new perspectives, new ideas on what you can do to start to break free from the shackles of unwanted sexual behaviors and start to make strides toward living a life that is wholesome and actually breaking free. Inshallah ta'ala, I look forward to seeing you for episode number 4, where we will talk about how lots of people continue to struggle because they have not made recovery a priority in their life. They have not made recovery a priority in their life. What does that look like? Why do people struggle because of that? Why do people do that? And what you can do to change that for your own self. Inshallah ta'ala, thank you for this opportunity. Always, you can catch replays, notes, episode, purifyyourgaze.com/kickstart. If there's anybody you can think of who could benefit from this positive, inshallah, uplifting message, please do share it with them. جزاكم الله خير. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.